Hello everybody, I'm going to do just the first video since the media has reported that Trump won. And it's what? It's 3 a.m., okay? This is normally when I get up, but I just wanted to do it quick because I want to cover the... You say, are you rejoicing, John? Do you know I said I thought Trump was going to win? And then I wondered if I was right, and I was right. All of the coverage, I congratulate Trump. He won. The coverage is reporting this tonight. So it will not stop. That's what we're looking at for the next 4 years. They just did I'm watching all the news coverage, except I'm really not watching Fox. I watch PBS News. And as the numbers begin coming in towards Trump's win, you could just see the faces on every single reporter on the network news. ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS coverage. They were shocked, they were upset, they were somber. And after the numbers came in, they're now reporting, remember these, when people vote, these are just estimates. The media was the first one that brought up, the first one I heard bring up the possibility of, quote, a rigged election was a Democratic, a Democrat covering, a reporter just covering it, basically talking about, you know, how they did a whole montage, which finally got me to make this video. Now that it's over, they began reporting the numbers. This is media spin that will not stop. They reported the numbers. Why is Trump winning a certain state? And a common theme, this is the continuation of media bias, which they could not see on each and every analysis as the numbers were rolling in towards Trump winning, which he won. They kept questioning, how could we have missed this? What's the reason for this? There was not a single coverage that I saw that said, maybe the majority of the people chose Trump. And what I had said all along, even in the beginning, was a lot of people are driven towards Trump because of the media, because of seeing continued coverage. Some points I mentioned on PBS News, they did a whole thing on disabled children. And they interviewed a mother who simply said, there's something about the image of Mr. Trump that intensifies the disabilities in children, where her son burst into like a seizure that was unexplainable, and he had some disability, I'm not sure what it was. She said, just when disabled children in the future see Mr. Trump, there's something strange that it causes his image to increase their disabilities and cast. All of that coverage is what caused people, in my view, to go to Trump. And I said this on and on. Now, they just did a whole montage. After he won, this is CBS News. They said, then you had the high and the low points. They showed the video of Trump speaking, and they used the language of when I grab a woman's, the bad points of Trump. They're showing that. They're showing every bad clip from Mr. Trump. They're reporting how the supporters of Trump, it said, how can we explain this? This is media narrative. This is media bias. They're saying, how could we possibly explain what has happened? They said the only way we can explain it is Trump is winning because of the uneducated Americans. Now, show you, and John, how do you know they're biased? I'll show you on one channel, I believe it was also CBS, they said, they kept using this narrative that he's winning among uneducated white people. He's winning among basically what is the white working class. All those Rust Belt states and all. Why did he win then? Because Hillary said openly, we're going to put a lot of coal miners and people out of business, things of that nature, which happened. So you could honestly report many of those white working people that voted for Trump were hoping to save their jobs. But they are painting a view of those, quote, white working, non-college educated people. They're painting them as that these people, because of their ignorance and because Trump is now in, they're destroying the country. This is the narrative of the media right now, which is destructive. They began putting the numbers of Trump winning. At this point, they called him the winner. I woke up, saw it. They're saying, remember, numbers are only estimates. Remember, folks, numbers of you voting, all they are is estimates. Because maybe we don't even understand the delusion that you voters are in when you vote for Mr. Trump. Maybe it's possible there's a mental disability that people had. And maybe they really meant to vote for Clinton, but somehow they're pushing a narrative that is destructive. And they could not figure out what was happening. And the look on all of their faces, which was tremendous shock. And how did they get all the polls so wrong? All talking about how were they wrong? What did I say a few weeks ago? And Trump himself said it. Some of the emails that came out by WikiLeaks said, the way you skew polls is you oversample. And that's exactly what they were doing. In the polling, they were oversampling. I found it interesting that as they were calling some states, some they said it's too early to call, and I'll grant it, some were tight. But then they popped California, they called it, and they were actually reporting, I don't know if there was a problem on the screen, they're actually reporting there was 0 vote in, and zero votes in, 0. We now call California. Everybody knew they were going to get California. But there was other where it said there was 90-something% of the vote in, and granted some were, so they couldn't call them yet. But yet one media organization said we have 0%. I don't even know if the polls closed yet. They said we're now calling it. There was one newspaper, I forget which state this was, and nobody called that state yet. And that newspaper came out in the state and declared Trump the winner. He lost that state. You say, well, and even the liberal media bias were like, oh, well, I wonder how that paper called it. Somebody said they just called it. During the interviews at the campaign camps, as the election was going towards Trump, which he has now won, they said, well, what's the feeling in the Hillary camp? Because they were covering the Hillary camp. They said, well, we have to tell you that they were going to, each campaign prepares to get ready to give a concession speech or a victory speech. This is way before it was called for Mr. Trump. And they said, all we can tell you is the Clinton people are now preparing the acceptance speech for victory. Now, this was when the numbers started looking real bad. What were they doing, John? They were beginning to sow seeds of doubt and trying to continue to manipulate the public. And then when they just did the montage, they said there were some good and high points in this campaign. And in that montage, there was no coverage of the bad points of Hillary Clinton, of the things that were exposed on WikiLeaks. They went clip after clip, like a campaign negative commercial against Trump, after clip, and replayed the infamous videotape where Trump obviously said things that nobody would be proud of, and they played the tape. They're divisive. And then and how do you know they were manipulative when they were reporting, and the way they reported The reason he's winning, it's because it's whites. It's because of racism they were bringing out. And these are uneducated whites. And a black Democratic strategist who did not realize when she was speaking the truth, she said to the panel, she said, but then how do we also explain, she wasn't defending Trump, but it slipped. She said, because they just reported the reason he's winning a certain state, this is the reason, because of non-educated, non-college educated white folk. That's why he's winning this state, they're reporting at one point. And then the black lady said this, and not only that, and she was a Democrat, she said, but how do we explain that in that same state that they were discussing, he's even winning a larger margin with college-educated white men? What's wrong with that? He was actually winning in that particular state maybe 60-something% of the white vote. But the media said he's winning 60-something% of the non-educated white vote, but he was also winning 60-something% of the college-educated in that particular poll that they were talking about. But they weren't telling you that. Simply meaning he won 60%. Every negative opinion, when Mr. Obama won 90-something% of the black vote, nobody questioned, was that 90% of the black vote a racist vote? Was that 90% of the black vote? But that's the spin they're putting on it. That's the spin. And then when they said, basically the reason Trump was elected was there are ignorant, racist white people that voted for Mr. Trump. That's the spin now. And the numbers, folks, they're saying, remember, whenever you see numbers, numbers are only estimates. That's all they are. Regardless of 6 months, the media is basically saying all elections are rigged. Don't ever forget that. This is the media bias that's destructive. In a way, I was thinking the last few days, maybe it's better that Hillary would win. And I'm not a Hillary supporter, and those of you who followed me, I thought, because I know if Trump wins, this is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to do. If you simply looked at the depression on every one of the media commentators, bar none, the soberness, the what could it be? And then when they said it must just be uneducated white racists that elected Mr. Trump, then they said, let's go to the next reporter. And they went to the Trump room where the people had left the room, and they said, the Trump people tore this place up. The room wasn't torn up. And what he was saying was, I guess they celebrated. He said, they're still rioting. The Trumps now are going to be, his people and Mr. Trump themselves are going to now, I guess, go across this nation in a riotous rage, maybe lynching black people. This is the media that caused, to a great degree, what we saw. And they just simply couldn't see it. I'm just doing this as an update, and it's my time, it's 3:15 in the morning. And the media themselves, and I've never seen this, I've not yet heard word from the Hillary Clinton camp that they're going to challenge any of the states. Some of the states that are very close, you could challenge. The first one I heard it was a mantra from the media. We're going to need a recount here. I've never seen the media begin trumpeting that. There is not a single question of will Mrs. Clinton now accept the results. Though those of you who followed this, they made that a big story, a huge story. Will Mr. Trump accept results? Not only are the media not asking this about Mrs. Clinton, as far as I know, she didn't do a concession speech. I might be wrong, but the media themselves are also now calling. The media are calling for recounts. Some might be automatic recounts. They are divisive. They are destructive. And for them to have done that montage on Trump, re-showing the video the night of an election after the declared winner is named, which is Trump. They began showing a montage of every negative clip. They played the infamous tape of "I grab a woman's such and such." You know, there are many tapes you could have played, video of Hillary's worst moments, Mr. Obama's worst moments, things that they've done throughout the campaigns. Not as bad as Trump in some of the statements, because he was not a politician in the classic sense. They're rolling that clip right now. They're rolling that clip, along with the headline. Now, as the numbers started coming in, they started putting, remember, numbers are only estimates. So we're never really sure of Mr. Trump. Even if people voted for him, remember, numbers are only always estimates. And the numbers, according to the media, that gave Trump the victory were ignorant, racist, uneducated, rampaging white people. You ask me what is more divisive for a country that needs to be healed. You couldn't be more divisive than that. And I don't know about the coverage you saw. I'm talking about all the network coverage, the regular news, including PBS I watched. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing right now. And so, I hated to put this up, but I had to. Now we pray for healing in the country. We pray that sides would work together. We pray that people would do the right thing and say, now we're going to move forward and do the best we can do. And it's obvious that people, it wasn't a bunch of ignorant white racists that voted for Mr. Trump. It was people who saw, to my point, the media bias. They saw media coverage of a 7-year-old boy in the New York Times who Mr. Trump scared that boy. But the boy had a dream about Trump, if I remember that one right. But they reported how the dream, that the people saw that. People are not ignorant, whether they're white, Hispanic, Latino, black. They kept saying, talking about the numbers of white women. So divisive how they cover this. And when they report that she's getting less vote in the black vote, or even in some of the things they were covering up in the women vote, where Trump was winning in the women vote, they would have to say things like, but it's the uneducated people. It's the uneducated white ones. Because but then in one of the states, I think it might have been Florida, they said, but for some reason, he's winning or doing better than the last candidate, Republican, and he's doing it amongst even some educated white women. How could that be? How could an educated white woman, maybe there's something else that we just can't comprehend. How about people were so upset with media bias? How about they got tired of watching that? And that's they're playing it right now. They're playing that Trump video, the negative one. They're showing that they're beginning to be what they are, is a divisive entity in this country. The media themselves, that's what they're doing. Challenging everything now. Referring to the vote tallies as, remember folks, votes are only estimates. Votes never really, ever express the view of a nation or of a people. And no matter how many you ever get, remember, if they're from white, uneducated racists, maybe they're not even considered, quote, a vote. Because white, uneducated racists, maybe they're just a delusional group of people. And according to the media, these are the ones who nominated Mr. Trump. God bless you.